I'm Cheryl Crisp for Movieguides Backstage Pass, and we're having coffee and conversation with Jeremy and Adrienne Camp.
Okay, I got mine too. So you know.
See, good. Rule followers. I like that. So it's so great to see you. I was thinking back to the first time that I met you guys. It was about 5 years ago. And Jeremy, when I heard your story, I was just so inspired and intrigued. And at that time, I don't know if you remember, but I told you your life story is what great books and movies are made out of.
Oh, that's
Fast forward 5 years, and your life was made into a movie. I still believe. With an all-star cast, the Irwin brothers, $14 million budget or so, and came out Friday night at the movies. And it did great. It was the #1 movie in the country. And then COVID hit. And all of the theaters closed.
Yeah.
What was that like for you? It must have been a roller coaster of emotions.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, thinking about the process of doing a movie, it's 2 years of blood, sweat, and tears. I mean, you have a lot of warfare, you have a lot of different things that happen. And so it's not easy. And so you're going, okay, but the redemption to all this is it's going to be in front of millions of people and the theaters. And it was in over 3,000 theaters, which was a huge release, all these amazing actors and actresses and all this stuff that was happening. And so it was a shock to the system because we were running at 100 miles per hour one direction, and all of a sudden a brick wall being right in front of you, and you're like, boom, and you hit it and have to kind of like pivot, and you don't even know where to go. I think it was like, okay, now that we hit the wall, but what do we do now? And there's a lot of emotion involved in that. And I think that, really what kind of the saving grace was the fact that, people are still going to see it. It's going to come out at home, which people were stuck at home for a long time. And people were watching it because they were like, I've heard about this movie for a long time. And what's it all about? And they're telling their friends. So we're seeing God using this in a way that wasn't what I wanted maybe or expected, but it's better. And we've heard stories, people saying, we wouldn't have taken our whole family to probably watch the movie. It would have been like a date night, or maybe I would have taken my daughter or whatever. And they're saying our whole family sat around. I had a friend that's like, we have 7 kids. We all sat around and watched the movie and just had a great discussion afterwards. So his ways are not our ways. And it's the depth that you want to be able to reach out to people. And
So did the words "I still believe" ring even more true after all this happened? Because it was kind of like, okay, God, we were going down this way, and then, wow, everything changed. And
absolutely. I mean, we kind of joked about just going, we are actually having to live the theme of this movie right now, And so to quote some of Jeremy's lyrics, it was like, even when I can't see, I still have to believe, And so just in that moment, it's like so many times in life, I feel like we don't always know what God is doing. We don't always understand. We don't get to see the aerial picture of how things are going on. We're like front and center, right in the middle of everything. And so just in that moment to just have to stop and go, okay, Lord, even though this is totally not what we thought it was going to be, but we trust you. We can trust you. You've brought us this far. Why would you, all of a sudden just forget about us now? So
it definitely was, that concept was like, okay, Lord, I don't understand, but I trust you. I've done it before, and you've always been faithful before. So,
absolutely.
Exactly. So Jeremy, for those people that don't know your story, I still believe, can you give them a little bit of brief information about it?
Yeah, I'll give a kind of Reader's Digest version. I met this woman named Melissa who was incredible. Like it was almost like the love at first sight thing, which you don't really sometimes people believe that or not, but it was definitely something where I knew it was like she was special. And we had the typical up and down relationship. I was in love, and so I told her, and she's like, whoa, chill out a little bit, and we ended up breaking up, and I was devastated, but found out, when we were broken up, that I was having issues with her stomach, and she went to the doctor, and they said that she had cancer. And so I came down to visit her and had this kind of incredible moment of just, walking in and her just smiling, just having this peace in her face. And I just asked her saying, hey, I didn't know what else to say. So I'm like, how you doing? And she goes, I've been sitting here thinking if I go through this, and even if I die through this cancer, but if one person gives their life to Jesus, it's all worth it. So it's like, if one person's life is affected by this in that way, then it's worth it. And I think for me, that is the theme that continues through, is that even one life, if even one life. And the whole story is just me walking through that journey, us, walking through, the engagement, her going through chemo and that battle, getting married and the hope of that. And then of course her passing, and then me kind of walking through my grief. It's a very raw story. It's real, it's raw. It shows real emotions, real frustrations, real anger, but you see the hope at the end of it. And I think that's the beauty of the story, is that, I always say that pain is universal. Everyone experiences pain. And so this movie, though, gives you a hope and something to point to in the midst of pain. And for me, that's Jesus. And so I'm unashamedly, some people are like, you preach too much. I'm like, why would I not say anything? Because that's what changed my life. Like, I have to proclaim what God has done. And I have to proclaim that if you're going through pain and hurt and hardship, He's what got me through it. So I'm going to tell you that He's the best thing to get you through it.
Adrienne, this story, Jeremy's story, would not be told if it wasn't for your support and your encouragement. You are such an amazing woman. Can you explain to people who might not understand it, or even for some Christians who might not understand, how can the second wife embrace the first wife's story?
It's funny. It's almost, in some senses, I feel like it's two-sided. In some ways, it's been so easy because of the power of the testimony and the story. And then in some ways, it's been hard. There've definitely been moments that I felt insecure, definitely been just moments that have been hard, especially in the movie and having to relive things. Yeah. And then, Jeremy and Melissa, this is almost 20 years ago. And at this point, it's like we've built a life together and we've got 3 kids. And so some of that was definitely took some navigating for sure. But the reason why it's easy is because it's such a powerful testimony. And when I first met Jeremy, I was so blown away by his faith and his testimony that somebody could really genuinely walk through something so difficult and then come out just going, I trust you, God. It wasn't, sometimes I grew up in the church and saw a lot of hypocrisy, and you hear people saying one thing and then kind of living another. And this to me was such a true story of faith that I just thought, you can't make that up. This is an authentic, real relationship with the Lord. And I was so blown away by it. And then as I got to know him, I got to know Melissa, and it was the same was true about her, And so when it came around to being, in a sense, my turn to be the second wife, I just knew I didn't ever want to stand in the way of other people being able to be impacted by their story, because it really ministered to me. And I just thought, I never, ever want to stand in the way, that even if it means a moment of insecurity for me, but tons of people have been touched by the story and by their faith. And it would just, to be honest with you, feel very selfish if I just said, okay, no, stop. It's about me now. We have a life together. It just, I just felt like, if God is going to use this, and it doesn't have to be about me, you know what I mean? It doesn't have to be about my part of it and all of that stuff, that if God is going to use this, that I want to be along for the journey to see him move through this. And he has.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask you. It says that Rotten Tomatoes, the audience score is 98%.
Yeah.
And it's really resonating with audiences, and not only Christians, but also mainstream. So have you heard stories about how this is impacting people's minds and their lives?
Yeah,
honestly, all over the world.
All over the world.
It's incredible.
When I say that we get, messages from all over the world of people from all different backgrounds, it's incredible to watch how people that don't believe in God, people that believe differently, people that are going, there's something different about this. You know what I mean? We want to know more about it. And I've had atheists say, I've been an atheist for years, but it's made me kind of be open to the fact that there may be a God. Things like that, where you just go, that's the goal. You know what I mean? If you can lead people to the truth and to hope, that's what we want. And I'm not here to preach at people. I'm here to point people to Jesus, and that's it.
Absolutely. Well, I like at the end of the movie, it's sort of the beginning of the relationship of you two.
Yeah.
And it's perfect because it leads us to everything that you guys are doing now. And now everybody's so interested in hearing about you guys. And I want to hear about the I Still Believe Bible study. Tell me what it is and who it's meant for.
Yeah, so I think when you do something, especially with this big of a scale, the movie, and it's going to be in front of millions of people around the world, how can you create more depth and more conversation, where it's like, hear from us all the things that we've learned during this time. And so we were able to sit down and have these conversations, conversations about grief, conversations about redemption, conversations about God's sovereignty, all those different things and lessons that we've learned throughout the time. And I think it was important for me and Adrienne to actually be involved in that, to show where we are as a couple now and the things that we've learned together walking through this. I think it's important because the story didn't end over there, or just end that we got married and that was great. We got married and we've grown together in our relationship and our relationship with the Lord. And here are the things that we've learned. And we're going to keep pressing forward. I mean, we wrote, so I guess the Bible study or whatever it is for would be anybody that's wanting to be encouraged, who's went through loss, who hasn't went through loss, but just want to understand more. Those who don't know Jesus that are like, I want to know more about them and what they really believe personally. And so I'm really excited that there's a tool out there to have that,
Totally. Yeah.
So I noticed on social media, you guys have been singing a lot together, and it's so fun to see. And so actually, when you guys met, Jeremy, you were the warm-up band.
I was. I was.
He was the lead singer for the Christian rock band, Benjamin Gate.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so cool. And so I understand from all the singing that you guys have been doing together now during COVID that there's going to be a worship EP coming out.
Yeah, it's funny because if you lock up a bunch of musicians, what happens? We get things, And so we had talked about it for a long time, but to be honest with you, with so many things going on, it was something we had discussed for a couple of years really, and it was like to find the time to do something was just like, we don't have the time for that right now. But with COVID, our tour got canceled and we're stuck inside, and so we just kind of thought, well, let's write some songs together and just kind of see what happens. And so we're so excited. We're going to release an EP coming out in a few months, I think.
Probably August.
And, just a 6-song, nothing crazy.
We'll see.
We had so much fun together.
Yeah, I think too, it's just writing songs that are relating to right now, and what's going on. So it's very, it's timely in a sense. So I felt like there were songs that were given for such time as this. So that's exciting.
Absolutely. And I understand you guys just released a marriage book called In Unison. Yeah. And I love the cover because the spotlight is on you guys.
Yeah.
And once again, the story about the two of you. It's so cute. You guys are so adorable.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So tell me about the marriage book.
It wasn't something where we were like, okay, we've got it all figured out now. We've been married for 16 years, and I feel like in our society, that alone is something to be celebrated. We still love each other. And even though 16 years really isn't that long for some people, but we just thought, let's just bring people in where we are along the journey right now. We don't have it all figured out whatsoever, but just kind of going, these are the things that we've learned. This is how we've juggled some communication issues and relational issues and kids and finances and life on the road and feeling like you're on the back burner and like just all of those kinds of things, And so it's just an exciting opportunity, I think, for us to kind of have something out there as well, to just go, we just want to be vulnerable. It's very honest.
Yeah, very honest. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Is Jeremy in trouble?
No.
Yeah, a little bit. That's
okay.
good.
Well, we don't, because we've just learned that there's power in authenticity. When
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like when we realize that we all struggle with things, we realize we're not alone in life. And I think that that's something that's so powerful, and it's disarming, because sometimes I think we feel like, oh my goodness, I'm the only one that battles with this. And then when you hear stories from other people, especially people that are in the limelight, and you're going, oh, them? Like, they also struggle with that? And it's like, it kind of gives you the sense of hope of going, okay, there's hope for us. And that was really our heart,
Well, I think too, it's like you're able to give people tools, because I think that a lot of people going into marriage have a misconception that marriage is going to fulfill
they lived happily ever after.
It's like, you're going to get married and that person's going to fulfill all your needs. It's like, well, no, that's actually not the case. Like, you have to learn that this is a journey that you're going to walk through. Iron sharpens iron. You're learning together still, and you're two imperfect people. So it's a tool to say, hey, this is how journey that we walked through and how God has taught us through that. And so very excited to get out there more and more, just to kind of get, I don't know, to share our story.
Yeah.
Well, my husband and I just celebrated 30 years of marriage.
That's amazing.
And I'm looking forward to reading it because you guys are so humble. And I know that you didn't write the book because you think you have all the answers. It's because you know that married couples have so many questions.
Yes.
So I'd like to get a couple tips from you guys. So what would you say to singles or people that are engaged, a characteristic trait that they should look for in a future spouse?
I think to me, one of the major things in life, in your relationship with God and your relationship with people around you, is humility.
Yeah.
And humility doesn't mean that you can't have a strong personality or even a bold personality. It doesn't mean you can't be full of life. But when you have humility, that you're willing to admit those broken places in your heart and in your life, that I feel like humility breeds trust when there's been difficult things. Humility just breeds health, no matter what you go through in life, because even like Jeremy said, pain is universal.
Yeah.
And when you get married, you don't know. I mean, you might struggle to have kids. You might go, we had a miscarriage. You may experience death. You may experience, some people go through, like people being unfaithful with each other. And so humility is the thing that in any relationship, and when you're looking for somebody to be your future spouse, I would just say, just look for humility. And essentially that comes from a deep walk with the Lord, obviously. If you know who you are in Christ, you can admit that you're wrong, because you know that we're all on a journey, that God is making us and renewing us every day, making us perfect. We're not going to reach that until we really get to heaven. So.
Exactly. We're all a work in progress.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Well, I think it's what it is. It's the willingness to someone who has a heart to serve as well. Because if someone is all about me, what will happen is you'll get into marriage, and that person will, like I said earlier, expect that person to fulfill all your needs. Yeah. Instead of you saying, how can we just, realize that God fulfills all our needs and that we can walk together and serving one another. And I think that is the ultimate thing, is just going, someone who's willing to serve and not to be like, it's about me and you serving me. So. Absolutely.
So what about for married couples, a tip for married couples?
I think that a lot of times when you're going through struggles, or like you're frustrated with your spouse, whatever it may be, it always takes two. Let's just put it that way. When somebody goes through, we've had a lot of people go through divorces. It always takes two. There's always, two sides to every story. Yeah. It's two people. But a lot of times when you watch your spouse or you're frustrated, you're praying, God, change them. Just change their hearts, and that's the wrong way to go about it. It's God. I mean, I'm not saying you don't pray those things. I'm just saying, God, change me. How can I help better the situation? How can I help take this situation and, instead of lighting a fire and causing a bigger flame, how can I put it out? You know what I mean? How can I walk in humility? I think that's one of the biggest things that people always, once you change, then I'll, step up. And it's like, no, you have to say, God, change me first. So that's a huge, huge thing in marriage.
I think for me, one of the most important things is just realizing that I can't do things in my own strength.
Yeah.
That I can't love well in and of if it's just me, if it's just with Adrienne. I don't actually have the capacity to be the wife that I want to be, to forgive when it's hard, to do all of those things. And so I think really pressing into the supernatural character of who God is, that he gives us this love that we can't find, 30 years in or 16 years in, or wherever it is that when you've hurt each other and whatever, that you might be going through, just realizing like God gives us access to who he is in those moments. And when you feel like I've got nothing left, it's okay. That's where we go to the Lord and just go, okay, God, but you can give me every single thing that I need to carry on in a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
So let's add the kids. You have 3 beautiful children, and Bella's 15 now. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. And then Egan is about 8.
Yeah, he'll be 9 in August.
Yeah. And then Andrew's 15.
So you're in the teenage. Oh yeah, you'll get through it. I promise you. There, to give us a tip for parents, something you might not have known or just something that's been really helpful with your kids.
I think one thing is that every kid has a different personality and has a different gift, or you relate, they relate to love and communication different, whatever it may be. They operate differently. And so I think to assume that you can approach each child the same is not good, because someone might be completely, like you might think, well, I'm going to, do this with them, and that's what's going to make them happy because it makes my other kid happy, or whatever it may be. And they're like, that doesn't connect with me at all, and you're never connecting. So it's being willing to listen. It's being willing to watch and observe and understand the differences and to celebrate the differences. And I think that with that comes communication, being very, very, we have a lot of talks with our kids. We are very real. We make mistakes. We'll say, we're sorry. You know what I mean? Because they need to see that, hey, we're human as well. We make mistakes, and we need to ask for forgiveness, even from you guys. And I think that the reason why parents don't do that very often, because it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and it's not always easy, because you're kind of like, okay, I got to deal with this, or I got to talk through, or I got to deal with my own junk, because I'm like, if I start, opening up and saying, yeah, I'm not perfect, you have to start realizing that I got to be honest about my junk too. Totally. And it's a humility thing, like she was saying, about humility being huge. So that's a huge part of it for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say, Jeremy, I think answered that really well, but the key, I think, is communication. And even I think at different ages, it's like, our son Egan right now is 8, and he's just obsessed with Legos and Marvel characters. Like, that's his world, And so I think just the importance of meeting him where he's at and building the communication with him. So at nighttime when we tuck him in, like, I'll climb into his little bed and he talks to me about Marvel and what he wants to do and build. And it might seem insignificant now, but building that communication now when they are teenagers and they're struggling through issues of life and a little bit prickly or whatever it is, you know what I mean? And then as they grow into adulthood, that you've built this friendship and built this communication, that it isn't just, parents and kids and there's this authority thing and you're down here and I'm up here. That we really need to, we're called to disciple them and pour into them and essentially be their friends and brothers and sisters in Christ just a little bit ahead of the journey than them, so.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It starts when they're really, really young, the communication and building the strong foundation so you can weather the emotions and the storms of the teenage years, right?
Yeah,
totally.
100%.
So I love what you mentioned a while ago. You were talking about the hole in your heart. I think a lot of people, this goes along with the movie and then also your book with marriage. I think a lot of people don't realize there is a God hole in your heart.
Yeah.
And that's the only, place for God. Can you just explain that a little bit? It always surprises me that a lot of people don't really know that.
You hear the story after story of people searching for things to fulfill them. So you have, do you think money is going to fulfill you, or success or fame, whatever it may be, drugs, alcohol. It's like you watch these people go downhill because they've tried everything and they're so empty. And then you watch people to the point, and you watch a lot of these musicians, and you see it even lately, committing suicide. And you're just going, man, it's because they're to the point where they're like, there's something missing, but I feel like I've arrived and done everything I ever wanted. But it's Jesus, it's God that is saying, I'm the answer. I'm the only thing that can fulfill you. And I think that's what people will make idols out of marriage as well, and be like, oh, if I get married, have a relationship with somebody, then I have that companionship that's going to fulfill that hole. That still won't do it either. And I think that's the problem going into marriage without Jesus, is that you're not going to find fulfillment. You'll be infatuated, you'll have chemistry, but then there's commitment. And commitment lasts when you have Christ in the center of your marriage.
That's so wise. It is kind of crazy times right now. Jeremy, you're an ordained minister.
Right.
Can you give us some words of wisdom, a Bible verse, or just some hope for right now with everything that's going on?
God, all throughout his word, talks about his character. And it says that, I am your strength, I'm your provider, I'm your comforter, I'm your shield, I'm your protector. I'm justice, I'm peace. I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm food. I'm water. I'm everything. So whatever you're experiencing in your life right now with all the hardships, when you look at the character of God and who he is, he's what you need.
Yeah.
And really Jesus is the answer. And it's not it's a cliche term until you actually realize that, no, you go throughout God's word constantly and you actually see that he demonstrates that character, whatever you need, or demonstrates that need all throughout his word. And so, for me, I think that it's just important to continue to ask the Lord to be what he is, whatever you need. And, I've been through, even the past couple of years, a few years ago, I went through a really hard time and I had to remember, God, you're faithful. I can trust you. God, I'm sorry. I have bitterness in my heart. Actually open up your heart right now. I think a lot of people need to open up their heart right now and say, God, what is it? What is it? Do I have bitterness? Do I have trust issues? Whatever it may be, what is it? I think that's right now. Once you do that, you allow him to heal you. And so whatever you're dealing with right now, open up your heart and ask him, say, search me, God, try me and see what there is in me, and let him heal you.
Jeremy and Adrienne Camp, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to everything that you're doing, and thank you for being so courageous to share your story. And to watch more videos like this, go to movieguide.org.